Councillors, we're now live on YouTube.
Thank you very much, Chris, and good morning and welcome to the Teignbridge District Council Executive on the 6th of April. All welcome, and I hope you all had a lovely Easter and enjoyed the great weather. Can I ask, if you're not speaking, if you just put your microphones on mute until you do speak, please. We'll go through just to make sure everyone's here and take any apologies. So, Sarah, would you organise that, please?
Yeah, I'll do roll call now. Thanks, Leader. Councillor Connett.
I'm present.
Councillor Dewhurst.
Present.
Councillor Jackie Hook.
Present.
Councillor Keeling.
Present.
Councillor Jeffries.
Present.
Councillor McGregor.
Present.
Councillor Purser.
Present.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Wrigley.
Present.
I've had no apologies, Leader.
Well, if we're all here, there can't be any apologies. So that's good, isn't it? That's wonderful. Thank you very much. So we'll get cracking in a moment, colleagues. I just want to talk to you about the meeting. So there is a part 2 on today's agenda for the Future High Streets Fund. What I want to say to colleagues is I suspect most of the conversation can be held in open session because that's where the bulk of the report is. But if you know now that you're going to need to refer to the part 2 item, or if during the course of debate you need to, please let me know, and then we'll go formally into part 2 for that consideration. And then we'll go back into part 1 to complete the discussion in open session, and that's where the decisions will be made. All right, so please don't lapse into discussing the exempt information in the open part of the meeting. All right, so I just want to be clear about that. Now we've got Councillor Mike Hawkins asked to speak on the Future High Street Fund. So when we get to that item, I'm going to ask Mike to speak, and then there's a presentation. And then, in fairness to Mike, I'm just going to let him speak again if there's anything that he needs to say in light of the presentation. And then we'll go to Councillor Jeffries, the Executive Councillor, and then the executive discussion before the recommendations. Since the agenda was published, some of the recommendations have been sort of tightened up and slightly changed. In the presentation, you're going to see at the start the track changes, so you can see what was sent out with the papers and what the proposal is. And then towards the end of the presentation, there'll be a clean set of recommendations. All right, so just need to make sure that everyone knows that and it's not a surprise during the course of the event. Anyway, let's move on to the next item, which is the minutes, and they're to approve the minutes of the meeting on the 2nd of March. And may I take a proposer and a seconder, please? So we'll take Councillor Keeling as a proposer, and may I have a seconder? Councillor McGregor as a seconder, and are we all in favour? If anyone's not, say so now. So we're going to take that as a unanimous, and we're all in favour of the minutes. Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest, as opposed to interesting things to declare? Are there any declarations of interest? No, so there are no declarations of interest. And then to note the forward plan, may I just ask if you all agree to note the forward plan? Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you very much. Item 5 then are the public questions, and I don't think there are any, are there, Sarah?
I have no public questions, Leader.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. So we move then to item 6, which is the executive key decision. So this is the Devon Home Choice Policy Review, and we go to Councillor Wrigley, who's the Executive Councillor.
Thank you, Leader. So Devon Home Choice is a scheme of housing allocation that is run by a partnership of other local authorities, districts and unitary across Devon, and all of the registered providers of affordable and social homes. Teignbridge uses Devon Home Choice to enable the fair allocation of homes and satisfy the legal requirements under various acts and statutory guidance. Representatives from each partner sits on the Devon Home Choice Management Board. So Devon Home Choice provides a common scheme across Devon with a common application form and approach to advertising properties, assessing housing need and awarding priority. Today, we are asked to consider a set of changes that have come from the Management Board discussions and will need approval from all of the participating authorities. These changes were put to a public consultation between November 2020 and January this year. But I'd just like to draw your attention to the Teignbridge Housing Register as of March this year, 1st of March this year, in Appendix 2 of the report. This shows the recurring pattern of a register of some 1,000 households needing a new home. And despite Teignbridge allocating some 400 homes each year, we see a small increase in the waiting list each year. This highlights the need for the Teignbridge 100 programme to deliver more genuinely affordable homes across the district, adding to the delivery from the Section 106 allocations. This snapshot of the register also shows that some 50% of the need is for one-bedroom accommodations, about 26% for two-bedroom, 17% for three-bedroom, and the remainder for 4 and above. In the light of that, we have 8 proposals on the table today, which are summarised on page 19 of the report. And please note that proposals 6 and 7 are not included for today. There was a member briefing recently on Devon Home Choice and how it operated, and that answered many questions. And today's alterations in policy are designed to alleviate some quite specific issues that have arisen across the county. And you will see that several of them relate to how need for larger numbers of bedrooms are assessed so that we can smooth out the houses that we have and the need for people with a variety of the larger number of bedrooms. I would like to put forward that we accept this as set out and let it go back to Devon Home Choice. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Wrigley. Is there an officer present who also may want to add anything, Martin?
I believe Tammy Hayes is here.
All right, okay. Tammy, welcome. And is there anything that you'd like to add to what Councillor Wrigley has said by way of introduction?
Well, hi, for those that don't know me, I'm Tammy Hayes. I oversee the running of Devon Home Choice. I think Councillor Wrigley has summed it up perfectly. I don't think I have anything further to add to it.
Right. Okay, so can I ask a couple of questions in relation to the 2 proposals which have been deferred or rejected? That's Proposal 6 and Proposal 7. Proposal 6 is deferred. Does that mean it's going to come back to all of the partner councils for some confirmation when Devon Home Choice Board have made a decision about it? And is Proposal 7 definitely off, never to be seen again?
Proposals, there'll be a task, a working group to have a look at the implications of it. It needs more work before we could make an informed change on the policy. Yes. So we're going
that's Proposal 6, yes?
Yes.
All right, and what I'm checking is when Devon Home Choice, when a final decision is made, is that going to come back to the partner councils for a decision, or what happens to it?
Yeah, if we were going to put forward an accept of Proposal 6 and we were going to look to change it, we can bring that back.
Thank you. All right, and Proposal 7 is basically in the recycling bin, I take it?
At this time, yes.
Yeah, that worries me when you say that. But anyway, it won't be implemented until
it won't be implemented.
To consider it.
That's right. Not until we've done any further work on it. But 6 will do a working group. 7 looks to be shelved. Lovely.
Thank you very much. And then I just want to take colleagues to page 7 on the report. And this is the legal implications which have been set out by the council solicitor. And the solicitor just notes, and I think I want to draw members' attention to it because I'm sure either you, Martin, or Tammy can just clarify. It says it is assumed, they're not clear in the report, that this has been addressed. This is about the consultation. And can you just assure us that the consultation with the registered providers was or has taken place?
Leader, the registered providers are part of the management team that have put this forward. So all of the registered providers are included within this, as far as I understand it. When I have
so in effect, they've consulted themselves and we've consulted them. So
exactly,
as part of it, you know, there's no impediment to us adopting the change.
None that I'm aware of.
Lovely, thank you for that, Martin. So, colleagues, you've heard what Councillor Wrigley said and what the officer has said as well. Martin has proposed. May I have a seconder, please? And Councillor Taylor is seconding. Any questions from colleagues? No, in that case, may I take a vote? All those in favour? Yeah, we're all in favour. Anyone has any concerns? No, we're all in favour, and that's unanimous, Sarah. All right.
Leader, that's
Okay.
carried.
Thank you very much. So now we're going to move to item 7, which is a notice of motion referred from the previous council on the 22nd of February to us. And this is a motion submitted by Councillor Hook, and I'm going to invite Gordon now to speak to his motion. Gordon.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning. Thanks, Alan. Yeah, I hope we can agree that it's right to give thanks, and it's good to show appreciation and to recognise the voluntary effort on behalf of the community, on behalf of others. We're living through extraordinary times, experiencing trauma on a scale previously not experienced for, well, I don't know, at least for 80 years. Many within our communities have come forward and performed quite remarkable acts, displaying generosity of spirit, commitment to their fellow man, a strong desire to help. This has certainly been the case during the ongoing pandemic, but of course it's not unique by any stretch of the imagination or restricted to the recent problems faced as a consequence of coronavirus. Many offer their time, energy, knowledge to help promote a vast range of activities: youth sport, the arts, support of the elderly, the hungry, the disabled, and the lonely, and so on. It's an almost endless list of people who are helping in various ways, in various directions. In my opinion, we should recognise, as a number of local authorities do, the contribution made by the voluntary charitable sector in an official way. I am asking that a group of members, volunteers, come forward to consider the best ways of doing this. My offering to that debate, by no means not open to 100 other suggestions, would be to invite town and parish councils, but equally offer the opportunity to members of the public to nominate either individuals or organisations for the award of a Teignbridge District Council certificate, which would acknowledge the particular contribution made, and in so doing, give thanks on behalf of the community for that contribution. An appointed group could then evaluate nominations. I have a number of ideas to flesh out the outlined proposal, which I won't trouble you with now, but it would be another way of building better, closer community relations across the district, I would suggest. This certificate could be presented by the chair of the council at an annual reception. I could go on, but I very much hope members across the chamber will support the proposal and we can take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. I think your comments there are well received. Some of what you said isn't within the scope of the motion you put to council, and we'll pick that up in a moment. But I think we would all endorse very much your comments. Apart from all of the excellent work that many organisations have done, almost uncertainly there are, well, I would say millions of untold and unknown acts of human kindness between neighbours and communities, which go on every day and unremarked, and people just doing the right thing for in their area, for their community. And I think all of us and everyone has been absolutely amazed by that warmth, which is one of the good things which has come out of the past year or so, isn't it? I'm going to move to Councillor Wrigley, who's the Executive Council responsible for oversight of our sort of community work. Martin.
Thank you, Leader. I fully endorse Councillor Hook's words here, because, as you say, there have been so many people that have come together, and I think the sense of community that has been built through the pandemic is astonishing. The individual acts of people has been truly tremendous, as well as the organisations that have stepped up, and I fully support the idea of having some annual awards. I think CVS have done some in the past. I'm not sure if they've been every year, but I certainly remember going to sort of recognition ceremonies with CVS. So I'd like to make sure that we don't tread on their toes in terms of devaluing that. Interesting idea about getting the towns and parishes to put people forward. I know a number already do civic awards. Certainly that happens here in Dawlish. So we want to make sure that we either add around those, or again, don't detract from those. I would have a question though of how we find people who may not be necessarily put through the towns and parishes. Is this something that we should be opening up to a wider sort of nomination process as well?
I'm not sure if you're frozen or just stop there, Martin.
No. I just paused there to see, to see where Councillor Hook was.
I can come in if you like.
Just hold on. Gordon, I'll give you a chance to come back, but I've got some other speakers. And Martin, whether you have frozen or not, that was a great place to stop. But just to let you know, I've got 3 people so far. Stephen Purser, Andrew McGregor and Alistair Dewar. So Stephen.
Thank you, Leader. I fully endorse what Councillor Hook is aiming to do, and your comments, and also Councillor Wrigley's comments. It's one of those times when so many people have done so many acts of kindness. It would be an almost invidious task, I feel, to try and select individuals who should get a certificate, as opposed to almost global certificates. You know, I have a neighbour who's called on an old boy next door and made sure he's alive and fed and watered and has food, who clearly would be one of many thousands across the district who, in my opinion, would be sort of eligible for such a certificate. And I just wonder the practicality of trying to do all that, often with people who don't wish to perhaps be acknowledged. I think it's a very laudable and a very good idea, and we need to do some form of recognition, but sorry, being the sort of the practicalities of getting to all those individuals, I see as a major problem that we would have to try and solve equitably, so nobody felt sort of hardly done by or not done by in the process.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm going to come to Andrew McGregor next. Yeah, Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. I think Alistair was in before me, but as soon as I've got the floor, I'll take it. In terms of what Teignbridge already do, we've had Sport and Community Awards for a number of years. Obviously, the COVID crisis has knocked the bottom out of that, in both in terms of being able to acknowledge people, do the work, or even people carrying out the work in the sports area, particularly working with communities. So from that perspective, we already have a sort of framework in place that we could use for it. The big question, of course, then at that point is that in the reality of things is that we were looking to reduce costs. So we'd need to find a way of financing a process like this, because it would be quite expensive. As Stephen has pointed out, we are talking potentially about thousands of people working through names, etc., to narrow it down. So there are going to be resources used, etc., to get this. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be recognising these people, because we have traditionally done so, but it's just that, you know, the more we add into the mix, the more the cost grows. So perhaps we need to look at what we do currently, or what we have done in the past, and modify what we've done there, and then use that model going forward to recognise the community.
Lovely, thank you for that, Andrew. Alistair.
Good morning. Thank you, Leader. So I actually remember in the last Lib Dem independent administration that we actually did a similar thing, and I believe it was open to a number of organisations to promote people, and also to us as district councillors to also do the same. And I'm not convinced that it was particularly expensive. I seem to remember that those fantastically worthy people, got a nice certificate, which I believe was printed in-house, and access to some nibbles and soft drinks, and a few speeches were made. But I still remember, and I know that those people that I personally took to the event remember it to this day, and their community remembers it. So for me, I really think this would be a fantastic thing. I could almost nominate just about every single person in my community, because everybody's worked together. But I can think of a few stars who I would really like to publicly acknowledge for their fantastic work. It done quietly in the background, but amazing work. So for me, I would very much want to support this.
I'm sure we all do, and I'll come back to Martin in a moment. I think, to an extent, I agree that it does require further thinking about, because it's not just about volunteers, it's also about people who've quietly been getting on with their job, the social care workers, the vaccinators, the NHS staff, the policemen, the firemen, the council staff. You know, so where do you start? But almost certainly, and one of the things that occurs to me is that we are still in the pandemic. We still can't meet indoors, but there are times when we might, and I think what Councillor Dewar says, that if we're going to do something, doing it well and doing it right, it might be worth waiting for. But Martin, you had your hand up. Can I ask Alistair, can you take your hand down? Alistair, thanks.
Thank you, Leader. I was actually going to suggest something very similar there, because there's a number of things that that I'm aware of, and clearly I'd forgotten about the sports awards that Councillor McGregor reminds us of. I think Councillor Dewhurst is absolutely right about the ceremonies and going to do there. There's you know, Old Ford House is a lovely place to hold such things and do things, but we are of course still in the grips of the pandemic. I know we even had the Prime Minister saying that, you know, he was worried about a third wave, and so I think we need to be cautious. I think this is a scheme that we should do, and I think it's something that we should do well, but I think we need to look into it, design it, work out how we get around some of the issues that, you know, such as Councillor Purser was suggesting, that similarly I could nominate just about everybody in the town for this. So I think a little bit of conversation with the other organisations, seeing how it fits in, seeing how we can organise it and make it something special and fair. So I'd like to propose that I take it away and report back in a few months' time as to what we might be able to do, and put some what's the phrase I'm looking for? Meat around the frame. Put some details in place, having consulted with the other bodies as much as possible, so that we can put something in place when we can safely bring people together again.
Right. So thanks for that, Martin. So as this, it was a motion that went to council and it was moved and then referred to executive consideration. So we make a recommendation back to council. So can I suggest a way forward for everyone? And in particular, some of what Gordon had said wasn't actually in his motion. So we're trying to embrace it and deal with the motion, and then what clearly is the mood of members. So item 1 on the motion was about Teambridge Council placing on record its gratitude to all sectors of the voluntary and charitable sector. I think we all agreed with that, so we support that. Item 2 was acknowledging the work of the many organisations, communities, individuals who have contributed at this uniquely difficult time, and I think, you know, that's absolutely fine. It's a statement of fact, and we'd support that. And what I'm going to suggest is that we ask the council's communications team to do a news release and to put something on the council website. As it's in Purdah, it's absolutely perfect because it can't quote a councillor, which is very, very good, isn't it? And so this would be a non-political thank you on behalf of the council to everyone. And that's a really splendid thing to do, because I'm sure all councillors and all staff will want to do that. So we can do that. And Martin, can I ask you to pick that up? with the communications team. Then we get to the ask, the original ask in Gordon's motion, which was we further ask the ONS Scrutiny Committee to consider ways in which this council may work even more constructively with the sector in the future. So that was the original ask. We'll come to the new ask in a moment. That was the original ask. And what I'm going to suggest is picking up on what Councillor Wrigley said, and obviously the news today is while lockdown is lifting, there's talk of a possible third lockdown. So what I'm going to suggest is that we would recommend that we look again at that in, say, 9 months' time, when we have better clarity around where the country is and what work might be needed on that. So that would be my proposal. And then we'll add in 4, which is the new proposal. So Gordon's mission creep, as it were, which is about a thank you event. And I think we'll pick up Councillor Wrigley's proposal on that, which Council agrees with the principle of a thank you event or process, and Councillor Wrigley and the team are asked to look at how that may happen and report back to a future meeting of the council. So that's the proposal, I think, amending. May I take a seconder for that, please? Well, I've got several hands up. We'll take Councillor Purser as a seconder for that. And is everyone, Gordon, I promise to come back to you. I do apologise. I do promise. Gordon, and in particular now you've heard what the proposal will be to council.
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, jolly good. No, I mean, thank you for the debate and thank you for the comments, and they're all, without exception, valid. I mean, this is trying to kick something off, trying to start something which absolutely needs consideration, absolutely needs input from different directions, and I would absolutely support that. I offer it as a starting point and nothing more. I just think it's got potential. I just think it's got possibilities, and it would be good to explore them. I certainly don't want to cause any great expenditure, and that is not the intention at all. It's just a goodwill gesture. It's just looking at people who have made, I take the point that I think it's, I'm not sure, I think it's Stephen making about his next door neighbour helping an elderly gent. Well, that's lovely, and that's going on, wholesale, and wonderful that it is. I'm thinking rather more of impact on the community, although I think, again, it was probably that whoever it was spoke first, might have been Martin, who suggested that we didn't want to tread on other people's toes who are doing something similar. And yes, of course, that's absolutely right. I do know that the voluntary sector is enthused by this, if I might say so, by this suggestion. So there would be support in that direction. I think somebody said about extending the rights of nomination. I said in my comments that it would be a way of linking with town and parish councils, but equally
So Gordon, I was hoping you might just summarise rather than take the opportunity to expand further your mission creep.
Sorry, I'm grateful for the comments made. I look forward to it going forward. I hope I might play a part in that. God bless you all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gordon. So, with Gordon's blessings, are you all content with the revised recommendation to council? So we've got, I proposed, Stephen seconded. Are we all in favour? All right. Anyone against? So that's wonderful. Thank you. That's unanimous. And Sarah, hopefully you got that down.
Yep,
I've got a squiggly note here in case. And thank you very much, Gordon, for bringing it to council. It's much appreciated. Thank you. Right. So we'll move now to the Future High Street Fund, which is sat on pages 25 to 114, and just the caution again that if you do need to refer to the Part 2 report, let me know, and we'll go into exempt session so everyone can discuss that at the time, but I suspect probably members won't need to do that. And so before we take the presentation, I'll go straight to Councillor Hocking. Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Leader, for allowing me to speak. Probably some of the stuff I want to say will probably be a little bit out of sync bearing in mind your preamble at the beginning of this meeting, that things might have changed or moved on a little bit since when the report was made. Having read through the report, it is clear to me that this was written in such a way as to tick government boxes in order for this council to satisfy this government's grant scheme, namely the Future High Street Fund. I see it as a way for this council to obtain money to generate the market hall instead of using its own capital to finance a scheme which has been on the table now for a few years. I cannot condemn TDC for this. What I do condemn is the way in which council is using Queen Street and the unpopular ideas of removing parking by narrowing the road to such an extent that restricts movement of delivery vehicles and people just wanting park, pop and shop. Even now, when vehicles are parked on the right-hand side designated bays, passage is restricted when large delivery vehicles are carrying out their lawful duties. I do, however, support some of the things within the report, like widening the footpaths in Queen Street to make it easier for people to move around on foot. But do we need to do this to such an extent as to allow cafe seating areas? Do we need to plant trees, bearing in mind the problems we have now with trees in Courtney Street? Yes, by all means, let's have shrubs and planted areas, but these must be looked after and not left to look like the ones again in Courtney Street. The joining up of it and enhancement of the National Cycleway. But I do question the impact that this will have on the town centre and therefore the benefits to businesses. We could be spending a lot of money, a lot of public money for little public and or business gain. But then yet again, this will tick boxes. At a briefing TDC officers gave to the town council just a few weeks ago, there was a lot of opposition to the Queen Street part of the bid. The town's development manager was quite outspoken as she put forward the feelings of Queen Street businesses who will be affected by the loss of short-term parking and the subsequent loss of pop-in shoppers. But I can see no mention of this in the report, just a few figures from the survey TDC carried out. And as we all know, figures from surveys can be made to look in favour of person, can be made to look in the favour of the person or the organisation asking the questions. If they didn't, then the survey would not be used to support the argument. Going on to the proposed upgrade of the Market Hall by joining the inside to the Alexander Theatre, we can all agree that something needs to be done, but making this one large open space with little shop units at one end, some removable market stalls in the middle, and a bar cum restaurant at the other, in my opinion, is not how I see our market progressing forward over the next 20 years or so. We have seen over the last 30 years now how the market has gone downhill. Traders finding it more difficult to compete with supermarkets and pound shops, and now with the increased desire to buy online, I feel their challenge to survive is even more greater. Tingbridge have not performed well over recent years in letting out the market stalls or little units which are now along the side. And I ask myself, what will change, or will this trend continue even after spending several £1 million on its conversion? Is this just going to be Torquay's white elephant, but in Newton Abbot? Tingbridge are still struggling to let all the units in Market Walk, and our old post office is still a disused shell. Perhaps we should concentrate on this before embarking on new projects. The new proposed cinema is, if the drawings are to be believed, to me that is, 2 shipping containers, one on top of the other. Not the sort of thing I wish to see in my town centre. Surely Newton Abbot deserves better. We only have to look at Tingmouth to see what can be done. The Alexander, although built as a coin exchange, was converted to a cinema stroke theatre and is the only surviving theatre out of 3, might be 4, but 3 that I know of, still in Newton Abbot. And yes, I am sure we can all see that this building is not fit for purpose in the 21st century, but it could be. I could go on forever making comments on this report, but I will not. I do not feel that this is the right way for TDC to go on the regeneration of our town. And although I will not vote against the full council, I will not support it. The reason I have spoken today is to put on record my view, and I hope you will, over the coming months, consider the harm that this proposal, in my opinion, will cause. Tingbridge over the years have not done Newton Abbot any favours in how they have allowed developers to destroy, in hindsight I know, the market town image of old. From the mid-70s, when it allowed the market area to be knocked down and rebuilt with the market walk we have today. Just look at the picture on page 61 of your report and note how the market hall stood proud within the centre of the town. And no matter how much money you throw at the inside now, this proud look cannot be brought back. Asda had a contract which we all welcomed at the time to build a supermarket on the Seymour Horrells site as a gateway to the town, but chose to go against that contract and build where it is today. It is my view, Tingbridge, by agreeing to this, let us down, and we are now left with an ugly fenced-off hole in the ground where this gateway should have been. We are now faced with Tingbridge being the developer, and I would hate history to see this as yet another letdown for the town. Yes, the town needs to grow and look forward to a future, but we also need to learn the lessons of the past. This report and its recommendations will go through, as no one will want us to lose 9.2 million of free money, but I do not believe that this is the right way to go. I have had my doubts from the beginning over all the plans that have come forward from many so-called experts on how we should regenerate, and I cannot see how tweaking along the edges, as this plan report is suggesting, will repair and move us forward from the faults inherited in the past. Thank you, Councillor Allen.
Right. Thanks, Mike, for that. We'll pick up things in general conversation, but we're going to move now to the presentation. Neil, would you like to start?
Yes, good morning, councillors. If I can, before I get into it, there are some minor tweaks to the recommendation that I'd like to put forward. If that's okay. So please. Apologies, it's come in so late. We had comments back from the legal team. So if I can just share my screen with you. So it's hopefully. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
So it should be the Word document. So there's nothing fundamentally changing to the recommendation, but it is more clarity on what specifically we're asking executive to do today, and also what we're requesting of full council when they meet on the 22nd of April. Oops, sorry. So the first bit is just finalising the detail of saying that we accept the bid for the funding. We were hoping to have had that funding confirmed by now. We were told end of March was when we were going to be receiving that confirmation, but we've been told now it's likely to be mid-April. So that's the first sort of minor change. The next part is on the recommendations 3 to 6 is being more specific, both in referencing where in the report you can find more detail, but also the amount that we're asking for budget to be included. And so it's, I mean, this is all the budget and the finances as set out in our submission to the Future High Street Fund. Those budgets do include contingency, so there isn't an anticipation that we'd need to come back for any variations on that. And so it's just being clear that what we're asking for full council is to agree the budget. Those budgets have already been included in the annual budget setting, and so there's nothing additional being requested that we haven't already made plans for. And it's also worth pointing out that the sources of those budgets, just in case anyone was interested in so it's a mixture of community infrastructure levy, section 106 money from planning applications, prudential borrowing. There'll be elements of projects that haven't carried on that we'll move budget across to include on all of that. And then the final point is just an amendment to bullet 7 about being clear that what we're looking for is sort of the delegated authority to prepare the plans and develop the details in line with the Appendix E, which sets out the timescales for the delivery of all of these projects, which is in line with the Future High Street Fund's timescale as well. So the money that we get needs to be spent by end of March 2024. So we've got quite a tight timescale in which to bring this all forward. So that's the recommendation and the proposed amendments. I've got a clean copy that I can share with everybody at the end if you're happy to accept those changes.
Fine, thank you for that, Neil. Yes, I think that tightens it up and in fact is clearer in terms of what the recommendations might be from the executive to council later in the month. So shall we move on into that presentation?
Okay, yeah, thank you. And so, okay, so I'll lead through this presentation just to give everybody an overview and a bit of a background of where we've come from, and I'll pick up Councillor Hocking's points about some of the changes. These are bits of work that have been going on for some time, so I thought it'd be quite useful for the executive, and we'll look to present this again to full council, just to give you the overview of where we've come from and where we've got to. And at the end, we can take any questions, and it'll be myself, and also on the call today is Tom Butcher, Louisa Brinton, and Estelle Skinner, who are all leading on the component part of the project. So any detailed questions that you may have, they'll join the call, and I may defer to them for further detail. So if we can just go through the presentation. This is a shorter version than the one that was included in the agenda, more focused. The other one was providing a lot more detail and background and answer to questions, but I don't intend to go through all of that detail now. But I thought it was quite useful to point out Newton Abbot is and has been a market town for 800 years. So it's always adapted and remained relevant to the needs of its community. The plans that we're looking to take forward are the latest evolution of all of that. So in the last 10, 11 years, the council has been looking at plans for what can happen to help Newton Abbot in its latest evolution. And this slide just sets out a number of those different plans and bits of work and studies that have been going on in all that time. And all of those bits of work were done with engagement from the local community, from councillors, from key stakeholders who are involved in what goes on in the town and the surrounding area. And through all of this work, visions have been developed, and the common theme, and we've brought this together from those various documents, is looking at Newton Abbot as Devon's premier market town. It's serving a wider population, it's well connected, and meets everybody's needs. So throughout those plans and ideas, one of the comments that's always made is it's all well and good having these plans, but people want to see things happen. And you know, the amount of times you might go to meetings and conversations where you think, well, okay, we've discussed this, we've agreed where we want to go to, let's move on. And one of the key components of that is the ability to enable that to happen, and that's through funding opportunity. So the Future High Street Funds presents us with an opportunity to deliver on that vision. The scope of what we can do is set by government. I don't think we can shy away from that. What we've had to do is look at what projects and initiatives and ideas that we've had collectively over that time and identify which of the projects we've all agreed as a way forward can we access and bring forward through this particular funding stream. So whilst there are other bits that may not have come forward, there are plenty that we've historically and continuously said this is where we want the town to be moving forward towards. So the scope is looking at physical changes, things that are going to help our economy. Newton Abbot's been quite resilient throughout the years and always done very well. And we're looking at what opportunities there are to bring more to those who use the town regularly, those who are within the local area but don't use it as much. So what can we do to help bring those people in to the town? And also looking at evolving to future habits and changes of how people get out and about, and trying to increase and improve the cycle infrastructure, the pedestrian experience, and also we can look at the change of use of the building. So there's 3 main projects that we put forward for the bid. There's the Markets Quarter, which also includes the cinema, there's Queen Street enhancements, and then the National Cycle Network improvements. So I'd just like to take you through the component parts in a little bit more detail. So the Markets Quarter centres around the Market Hall and the Alexandra Cinema. So the building was originally designed as a corn exchange, but split into a Market Hall and a theatre, which then became a cinema. We monitor the footfall into the hall on a daily basis, and we've seen the decrease over the last 5 years. So this is a national trend. This isn't just something unique to Newton Abbot. The markets as a whole are suffering as a result of competition, of changing consumer habits, and we need to do something that addresses that particular issue. So that was the older building. So we saw a 35% decrease in footfall over the last 5 years. So taking that image of what the building used to look like, what we've been looking at is developing a cultural quarter, a flexible mixed-use space, which retains the character of the building, but leaves us much more flexible and agile as to how we use the building moving forward, how adaptable it can be, and how it can be used to offer not just the daytime economy, but also extending into the evening economy. And this is an artist's impression of what it could look like. But we're also aware that this image is sort of a step removed, and again, an artist's impression of from within the Alexandra Cinema building, looking through and into the Market Hall. There's still a lot more work for us to do this, but this is part of the imagery and how it could work. But we know that it's not uncharted territory. This is Altrincham in Greater Manchester. You can see similarities to how the building looks and how it's laid out to what our thoughts are. So we've been looking at what works elsewhere, what the opportunities are, and being able to visualize how this could work is actually quite reassuring. And you can see on the bottom bullet point, in Altrincham, they saw an increase in footfall by 25% from making those changes to that building. We undertook engagement as part of the submission to the Future High Street Fund. Consultants on our behalf interviewed or surveyed 877 people, 99% of whom had a TQ postcode, the other 1% had an EX postcode, so all local respondents, and looking at the importance of the markets to the town, and it's still seen as very important, but not a destination in its own right, and that the main demographics were people who could come in and spend money in the town, and but they're not necessarily going to be using it. So we understand that the potential is there. There is a need to appeal a lot more broadly, and that there is widespread support for enhancements to be made. We know that we can't carry on exactly as we are. We need to look at how it might change, and so this is going to enable us to move on and look at that. There's also, as part of that, obviously going to be changes to the cinema building, which we know for 2 to 3 weeks a year is used by NADMAX, the local amateur dramatic group, and the Friends of the Alexander Theatre, who are made up of members of that group and others in the community who are keen to see the theatre element retained in the building. And that's always been an intention, is to have the flexible space to allow theatre to carry on in different performance space. How exactly that's going to work is still to be developed, and we've had very productive meetings with the group to talk about how we move forward, and we've drafted a memorandum of understanding which we've shared with the group about how we want to work together moving forward. Moving on to the cinema building, we've known for quite some time, so we've had survey work in the past looking at demand and need for spaces, and we know that there is a demand for at least 4-screen cinema within the town. We continue to work with Scott Cinemas to bring that forward. We did look at bringing forward a scheme back in 2018, but ultimately had to shelve it because it wasn't viable. The Future High Street Fund has now allowed us to revisit that plan, and you can see from the slides some of the benefits that come from cinemas. This is survey work in the latter bullet points. I won't hold on to this slide too long because obviously it's a lot of information. The slides will be available as part of the notes or the minutes from this meeting. But the latter bullet points are based on some survey work that was done on the return to the cinema, so what the impact of lockdown has been. And you can see that it contributes very positively to the social side, and a lot of age groups are missing out on that activity they would have otherwise used. So there's a lot of benefits in how the town recovers from the lockdown measures and from COVID that the cinema can help address and bring forward. And it's also, looking at that building, looking at the cultural quarter more widely. There's been investments recently in Newton's Place with the town council, in the library from Devon County Council, and another iconic building in the town, obviously the Market Hall, and we're looking to invest in repurposing that for modern life. Moving on to the cycle networks, hopefully you can see all this well enough. It highlights a number of different routes in and around the town. There's been a lot of investment to bring forward improved cycle links from Newton Abbot to the wider area. So good trails out to Bovey Tracy, to Kings Kerswell on Torbay. There is work in bringing forward the Team Valley, the Team Estuary Trail. But it's known that you can get the routes into the town, but getting in through the town centre is a little more challenging. So some of the money from the Future High Street Fund will be brought in to enhance those links within the town centre, and hopefully you can see the purple lines on the map are where the Future High Street Fund money will be invested to make those improvements. Active travel as a concept and something that we're very keen as an authority to push forward. Not only does it help with the climate change agenda in shifting the way people move around the towns, but it's also very good for well-being and an opportunity for Newton Abbot to lead the way in delivering active travel for the physical and mental well-being benefits that brings. We did again undertook some survey work looking at the improvements before we submitted the bid, and a lot of strong support for improvements to the cycle network. Low numbers of people currently use bicycles for shopping, but there is potential there that more would start to use it. I appreciate it's a small sample size, but it backs sort of national trends and information that we see that if the infrastructure is in place, people will use it. Looking onto the improvements on Queen Street, these are aimed more at the pedestrians than cyclists. Obviously, they're improving the space and having it less dominated by cars will encourage more cyclists down there. But by having wider footpaths, it's much better for the pedestrians, for people looking to use the shops up and down and other facilities along Queen Street. But so it's just a better public realm and enhancements for pedestrians. It's quite cramped at the moment, quite narrow. There's a lot of street furniture, and as you're moving down, especially on busier days or busier times of the day, it can become too narrow and force people out into the road or between parked cars. So it would create a much better feel for the place. And again, we undertook some survey work before we submitted the bid, and those support for seeing improvements to those facilities to widen it for pedestrians, and also making sure it's well maintained and looked after. There is still more work to be done on the detail, which will be the next stage of the bid once the funding is secured, to design that up, and picking up Councillor Hocking's points of being mindful of how it's all going to work and how it's going to be maintained, and that'll be sort of the next step. So it'll be quite useful just to share this slide on occupancy along Queen Street, to show how much it's changed in the last 20 years, and it stands out as nearly half of the number of shops that existed 20 years ago have now changed to other uses. So no real change in number of takeaways, but an increase in cafes, more residential, more services such as barbershops. So it's the dynamic is changing. That's something that's quite notable. Things like the Grimsby review, which we've cited in the report, showing that how people use town centres is changing, and what people want from their experience is changing, and the dynamics of how people use that. The number of shops or pop and shop is decreasing, and so we're looking at longer dwell time. So it's not necessarily that people are going to want to be getting in and out and off they go. They're going to want to stay a little bit longer. So having an improved customer experience and pedestrian experience is quite important for that. So the next steps, once the funding has been agreed and secured, is to develop detailed engagement plans. So to engage with those who've fed back into the process to date, to start going through much more detailed delivery plans. The cinema project will go beyond the lifetime of the Future High Street Fund, but we can utilise Teambridge money for later stages. You can still invest after the March 2024 deadline. So there'll be sort of more upfront money for that. So there'll be planned applications and also detailed plans. The cycling enhancements within the next calendar year, with Devon County leading on that, and the Queen Street plans a little bit longer over the next 2 years moving forward. And just to summarise, the outcomes that we're seeking from this bid, to deliver on the vision to develop Newton Abbot as Devon's premier market town, see an increased footfall into the town centre, much broaden the appeal for who comes to the town to see that as that destination, investment into the evening economy, and lengthening the time people will dwell within the town, and being adaptable and changeable as the next iteration of Newton Abbot. And that ends the presentation. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you for that, Neil. Just hold the questions, because I did promise I would come back to Mike Hocking before we moved into executive questions. So Mike, you've seen the presentation. If there's anything you briefly want to cover, please do.
Well, thank you, Leader. I mean, the presentation isn't that much different from the original presentation that's been said, a bit more information and whatever you on there. I am still very concerned about the way that we're trying to use Queen Street as a lever to get the funding. I don't believe Queen Street, the way that Queen Street is being predicted as taking all this parking away and not replacing it. When this first came about, the parking that was going to be taken from Queen Street was going to be put into Cricket Field car park. I appreciate the surveys that have been done in respect of how many cars are using each car park within the town centre and the spaces that are available. But the people that actually stop in Queen Street are basically pop and shop. They just pull up, pull it, go in and do a quick, get what they want quickly, and then they're away. They're not the sort of people that normally go and park in the car parks and use the town centre. They are just a quick pop and shop. And that is my worry. That is what's worrying me and the businesses within Queen Street, that will be taken away from them. Queen Street itself, yes, the officer is quite right. Queen Street is changing, and it has been changing. Has the town centre pulled more towards the centre, like Market Walk, and the businesses within Courtney Street have actually pulled the town centre towards it, rather than whereas Queen Street was making quite a long town centre, if you know what I'm saying. So yes, it has changed. But there's businesses, but if we take away the parking, certainly down the bottom end, which we call is Takeaway Alley, they will have a problem with people, again, pop and shop. They just pull up, go in and get their takeaways, and then off again. And that is a big problem and a worry and a concern. So although I understand why Teambridge have said what they said and brought the plans forward, and using Queen Street as a way of getting this funding, I can understand that. I don't agree with it, and I won't support it, because I do not think this is the right way of going. We tried many years ago as a town council, tried to get the top end of Queen Street pedestrianised. Devon County Council refused it at that point, saying that there was a road going through and that we couldn't pedestrianise. In fact, even the businesses didn't really want it pedestrianised. So by doing what you're doing, I do not believe that this is the right way. And although you know, nothing really in the report really changed my idea, I just hope that it will go through, and I'm not doubting that you will vote it through now. I just hope that you will perhaps talk to the businesses, talk to the town council, and actually listen to what we're trying to say. People that's lived and worked and shopped in Newton Abbot all their lives, we know exactly what's going on. We know Newton Abbot, and I don't think that some of the ideas that you're getting from other places up and down the country are necessarily what's going to work well in Newton Abbot. We all know now, even just one last little thing, Mr. and I will finish. Even now, we know that at dinner time on a Saturday, everything goes dead. On a Thursday afternoon, everything goes dead. Why? Because traditionally, that has been the time when Newton Abbot have basically grind to a halt.
Right.
Anyway, thank you for letting me speak.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Mike. Appreciate it. Nina, Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Leader. Thanks for the presentation, and thanks, Councillor Hocking. I had a little bit prepared earlier, and then I've kind of changed it listening to everything everyone said today. I just hope that you will look through all the presentations, all the paperwork that's gone before, just to go forward in terms of what's happening. I think the TDC have worked tirelessly over the past 10 years towards this bid to win a successful bid for Newton Abbot. I understand some of the discussions that have been had with the community, and there has been plenty of consultation that has gone out and discussion, and I don't expect that to stop in the first instance. And then they've gone back to reimagine the original bid in the light of COVID and the restricted funding that's available, to ensure that it really remains transformative and meets the government criteria as well. So although I hear what you're saying about the restrictions on car parking, I think that is one of the discussions that we will have to take forward in terms of looking at the detail and what will work, and as people say, talking to the people that have shops there and live in the locality. I think it would be remiss to ignore how vital and healthy discussion on the concerns and the positives of such a scheme would be, and just to thank again Councillor Hawkins for putting forward some of those today. No scheme is going to come forward such as this size without those kinds of discussions, and in order to make sure it's robust enough, needs to happen. So any regeneration is a risk, but it's reassuring to hear actually today that despite those reservations, based on historical experience, and I can understand, you know, Newton Abbot has had quite a lot of building in the past that has been hit and miss, shall we say. I think we have to take risk in order to revitalise areas and to bring forward new investments, and particularly after what has happened over the past 12 months with COVID-19. It outlines in that report some businesses actually that have sadly not been able to survive the pandemic on the high street in Newton Abbot, and we need to look at how can we reimagine and reinvigorate the high street to encourage new business in, whether that's the markets, new walkways, younger people coming in, a nighttime economy, new cinemas. If we don't take the risk, we won't really know. So it's good that there's still a willingness to support the bid and to drive forward that vision for everyone that works for all. So I just wanted to acknowledge that I've heard that Newton Abbot is a town with a proud heritage. Obviously, I'm a Devon girl, so I know that anyway. And that I feel that really listening to everything, there are still very much exciting times ahead. I'm looking forward to further engagement around the detail of this bid, working with local communities and making sure that people's voices are heard and brought to the table, so we can make sure we have got something that works for everybody within this community. And not only do I feel that it's good for Newton Abbot, but I feel that it would be good for all the towns of Teignbridge to have something as a vibrant market town. So I'm just going to finish there and let somebody else speak if they want to. Thank you, Leader.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nina. So I've got next Jackie Hook, Richard Keeling and Stephen Purser. So Jackie.
Thank you, Leader. I'm speaking not only as an executive member, but also district ward member and currently county councillor for the Newton Abbot Town Centre area. And it's not often we get the chance to confirm and approve our acceptance of £9.2 million of government funding to invest in the future prosperity of the main town in our district. And this represents a real opportunity for Newton Abbot to define its role as the premier town of the area, serving not only the needs of its residents, but those of the surrounding area, and not forgetting visitors to our district. It will enable businesses of all kinds to prosper, the environment of our town centre to be improved, and the quality of life of the residents to be enhanced. And for me, this feels very much like the culmination of a journey which began with the vision expressed by the people of Newton Abbot in the town's community plan of 2008. And on the slides, we saw a number of other documents that have all gone through public consultation that contained that vision that was in that original community plan. The community plan then provided the context for Newton Abbot's neighbourhood plan, which was drawn up in conjunction with the people of the town, who voted for it in a referendum held in 2016, following extensive public consultation. And it is the town council's and the town's neighbourhood plan, which states that Newton Abbot is an ambitious town which positively embraces sustainable development and change. And just to pick out some of those things from the neighbourhood plan that are part of the vision of the town held by the people of the town. So the priorities are to facilitate initiatives which maintain and improve the quality and socio-economic viability of the town, to open up better cross-town connections for walking and cycling, to green the streets through tree, shrub and flower planting, to address traffic issues in the town centre, including the potential for remodelling traffic priorities in Queen Street, and to encourage the development of an evening economy. Now, all of those elements of the town's vision and priorities for the town centre are reflected in the 4 elements of the future High Street proposals. And in addition to the support the town's neighbourhood plan gave to the proposals, we've already seen that the district council carried out its own consultation, which we've just seen the results of, which showed a clear majority support for all the 4 elements of the proposals, including the Queen Street proposals. And it has to be mentioned that actually some of those responses were pushing for a more transformational approach in Queen Street that possibly, might not be possible. Obviously, more discussions are possible, but there is an element of our population that would like to see something more transformational happen in Queen Street than is proposed, but we need to find a solution. So in my opinion, we can proceed with confident that we have the majority support of the town's residents, and confident that this district council is delivering the residents' wishes. However, it is important that we continue to consult on the fine detail of the proposals to ensure we achieve the best outcome, not only for residents, businesses and visitors now, but for those of the future. We must continue to listen and seek to allow for differences of opinion about the detail and the way forward, but without losing the overall transformational vision that is behind these well thought out and interlinked proposals. And this, I'm sure, is the desire of all stakeholders. And lastly, the Grimsey review has been mentioned. I, to be honest, didn't know who Grimsey was, but he is a long-term active senior retailer and has carried out other retail reviews in this country. But, I would urge you, if you haven't read it yet, to read that review, because it really is very inspirational about the way forward for town centres and includes lots of case studies. And as far as I'm concerned, why wouldn't you listen to experts, or why wouldn't you look at what's worked in the rest of the country? Because the evidence is very clearly there. But that report was just June last year, and it was about building back better after COVID-19 for town centres. And just to, there's so many good quotes you could take from that, but just one from Mr. Grimsey himself. Shopping is just one of the challenges facing town centres. High streets are inextricably bound up with climate change, seemingly intractable transport problems, crime, worsening public health, loss of community and shared sense of belonging. Breaking this nexus of problems is key to the promise of a better life for all. That opportunity is now within touching distance, but to seize it, we need to let go of the past. It rests on us all, not just decision makers in local and central government, but in communities everywhere to make it happen. The most successful high streets and town centres will need to change to reflect the communities they serve by transforming themselves into community hubs, playing to their strengths of offering human interaction and unique sense of place and community. So I believe the Future High Street Funds provide us with this opportunity for Newton Abbot. I have no hesitation whatsoever in welcoming this funding, the proposals and recommendations in the report as the start of our journey to transform our town into that unique centre and community hub of the future. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jackie. Richard, Councillor Keeling.
Thank you very much, Lee.
Sorry, Richard, can I just ask people to take their hands down when you've spoken? Would that be all right? Richard, you carry on, thanks.
Thank you very much, Leader. I certainly welcome this investment of £9.2 million. It could have been more, it should have been more. I'd welcome certainly in Chudley that small proportion of that investment into our high street, especially into our shared space scheme that we have ready to go. But, can I just say, I disagree with Councillor Hocking, and I disagree with him because as a past retailer of two shops in two towns within Teignbridge, that, over the years, 15 years of being in that business, I would certainly now, if I had the a younger feel to me and energy, I would certainly be investing in a shop in Queen Street. And because the footfall there will be certainly increased through this investment. And that's what it's all about. It's that those retailers within the town have got to think towards, this will increase the footfall. This will increase the amount of people coming through my door and looking at what I'm selling, buying. And the longer they stay in the town as well, the more shops that they go to. So the parking side of it has to be, reduced so that people stay longer. The one stop into one shop and out doesn't benefit the next shop down or the next shop down. So this is strategically right and correct. So I totally support that. Can I also mention something that Councillor Hocking is probably not aware of, but we are working very closely with a new tenant, myself and Councillor Jeffries, for the old post office. So that is ongoing at the moment, and we hope to bring you some news soon on that. But I certainly welcome this. Thank you very much, Leader.
Thank you, Richard, and for insight from your own sort of business experience. So, Stephen, Councillor Percy.
Thank you, Leader. This may well be a left field question, and if so, please rule me out of order. But as you know, I'm very keen on residential, high quality residential buildings within our high streets as the big retailers and the big shops go, and we build these smaller community hubs. And to prosper, they need more people, and more people living in town centres is a way forward. And certainly I understand the planning laws have changed, and large shops can now, without, I think, having to apply for planning permission, be converted to retail, to residential. Something we need to keep an eye on to make sure we do get a high quality mix of residential. And the question really is does this plan in any way link up to that potential or possibility, or can discussions be somewhere included if a greater residential offering is going to come forward? Can this plan accommodate and sort of be mindful of what might be coming residential wise in the future?
So I'm not going to, you're not out of order, Stephen. It's a fair question in terms of how the centre in Newton Abbot might well develop and change in years to come. What I'm going to do is ask one of the officers to pick that up at the end. I'm going to get through the speakers, if I may, because I think that's a connected but not directly relevant question, if that's all right. Thank you. Alistair, Councillor Dewhurst.
Thank you, Leader, and a big thank you to Neil and his team for bringing this forward. It's been a long time coming, and for me, I really welcome this, because the future of Newton Abbot clearly is at a tipping point, and unless we do something, Newton Abbot, like market towns and high streets everywhere in the UK, will just cease to have a relevance. So to take the sort of various bits in order, Queen Street, there is no removal of parking at the eastern end beyond the Imperial, and all those pop and stop places will have the same amount of parking that they ever have had. But at the western end, up towards Courtney Street, it's a horrible experience. There's no space on the pavements, and like most of us, I've had little reason to visit Newton Abbot or anywhere else for that matter in the past months, but when I had to go to the bank the other day to get some documents signed, it was a really unpleasant experience just walking that 50, 100 yards to the bank, with people having to walk out into the street and the like. So I really welcome additional space and improvements, and I'd love to see some trees and planters and just a friendly pedestrian area. The cinema is absolutely, I think, a key. I do believe that people think that going to the cinema is one of our major sort of leisure issues. I have a little bit of an interest to declare here, in that I'm a member of the management committee of the Village Cinema in Ipplepen, and we know how people have really missed going to the cinema during lockdown. So I very much support that. In terms of the building work, I was a little bit concerned about the risk assessments on page 111. Having just gone through the last 3 years of a major 13 million plus building project, and knowing that the things that everybody said to us, oh, you don't need to worry about that, or you don't need to worry about this, actually we really did have to worry about that. And things like asbestos on old buildings, you just never know where you're going to find asbestos. Similarly, the moment you start digging into the ground, you just have absolutely no idea what's going to happen down there, particularly I suspect in a place like the centre of Newton Abbot, where you could well find archaeological remains and all kinds of things. So I really hope our officers have absolutely looked at those risk assessments in absolute detail and put in the maximum that we need to cover ourselves if anything sort of goes wrong there. And then coming to the Alex and the Market Hall. When this first came up, I spoke about that some years ago, and I did have concerns, because I feel that although clearly we need to improve the Market Hall, and that is side of things is pretty obvious, and in the pictures there we saw images of the one in Altrincham. In terms of what we want to do with the Alex, I'm really glad that we're talking to the various stakeholders there, because I just don't quite see in all of this exactly what we intend to end up with, and for me, I really would welcome a space where theatre could take place, can take place, where dining can take place, a real place to go in Newton Abbot, which I think would bring people in and also lead to a sort of a regeneration of our arts, a place perhaps where you could hold a small concert, that type of thing, music. I'd just really love to see that. I actually, sorry, nearly finished, leader. Okay, so I also like some others remember the old market of old. I remember the Boyle Sweet Man and the China Man, and I'd love to see that kind of vibrancy come back to our market square. I'm aware of the proposals for the post office and very much support what I've heard so far from the people who are coming forward with this. And then finally, I'd also like to support Councillor Purser in his comments about housing. I really think I'd love to see some housing, proper housing in our town centre, some quality housing. I think that'd be really good. In European cities, the best flats and the nicest places in the town centre. Thank you.
You've said enough, Alistair. Brilliantly, wonderful. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
So no need to apologise, but once we got into Europe, I thought we'd better stop the global trot. And now I'm going to move to Martin Wrigley and Andrew McGregor. So Martin.
Thank you, Leader. I will be brief, I do promise. I think all of the ideas that are bringing more community, bringing more evening life, bringing more retail, leisure retail uses are really going with the trend that we need to be following. So I support all of these. I won't repeat all the things that people have said, other than like Councillor Dewhurst, I went to the bank and ended up walking down the middle of the street because there wasn't enough space to walk on the pavement, and it's not a nice experience. We can improve it. These plans can be, will be a significant improvement. I mean, I pity the middle of Newton Abbot because it doesn't have the wonderful things that we have in Dawlish, with the greenery and the spaces and the wildlife right in the middle of town, which does enhance the community tremendously. But the greening of Queen Street is a great step in the right direction. Removing the cars and removing the focus on cars and increasing the focus on people is a great step. I'll leave you with one thought. My early career, I started working in the mid-80s, right in the middle of Coventry. Plenty of parking, plenty of retail opportunities. It was a ghost town. It was horrible. I think the 60s have done us no favors, and the designs that we have now will produce a far better result. The emphasis on markets is really key with the local shop local trend, with people wanting to buy from real people, which does complement the online shopping that is here to stay. So I fully endorse all the proposals, and I love the way it's going forward with being very collaborative as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. And Andrew, Councillor McGregor.
Thank you. I'll start with Europe. I mean, if you take Dillingen in Germany, or Vila Bella de Redao in Portugal, or Seville in Spain even, these are all places that have followed a similar path in terms of reducing the amount of cars in the town centre, reducing the amount of parking, and attracting, funnily enough, more people into the town centre to enjoy clean air environment, a relaxed opportunity to sit down and commute through the town. In the UK, I mean, you look at Oxford. Oxford is a very old educational town with beautiful buildings, and much of the town is now pedestrianised. And again, it's about getting people to stay within the town centre and enjoy the environment within the town centre. I think in terms of Newton Abbot and the actual fund itself, I think we have to remember that the fund is based on providing a transformational look to Newton Abbot. If we don't provide the transformational look, we won't get the funding. It's as simple as that. You know, and in some respects, whilst they've expected a transformational look, they've also tied their hands slightly to that the transformation can't be as good as we would like it to be, but we have to make the best of that. And I think going forward, you know, I think if we didn't have the funding and we didn't have the opportunity to transform the town centre, places like the Alex and the market area that we have at the moment would continue to suffer from entropy, start to decay, start to look even worse. And all we'd end up with is a dirty, polluted town centre with fairly unpleasant looking buildings. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid here, and look to the future and generate real interest in people coming to Newton Abbot to stay, to become a neighbourhood rather than a shopping destination.
Thank you for that, Andrew. I'm going to come shortly to Neil Blaney, Head of Place and Commercial Services, to pick up some of the points, in particular around the associated issue of potential residential. And I'm mindful, of course, that while the government have changed some of the planning regulations, which would enable retail to convert to residential, it needs to be done sympathetically and well. But I'm put Neil on due notice, it's coming your way. And I want to thank everyone for all of your comments. For me, there are two headline issues. One is, do we agree Newton Abbot should be Devon's premier market town? If we do, then we certainly can't stand by and do nothing. Something must be done. And here is 9.2 million of government funding to help us achieve that. But don't forget, when you look at the numbers, it's not just that. We are putting in, as in public sector, primarily Teamage, are putting in something like another 6 million on that. So this is a 15 million, huge statement of confidence and faith in Newton Abbot as a growing and vibrant market town, which really does stand foremost in all market towns in Devon. You know, that's the vision. That is the vision. But change is never easy, and letting go of the past and moving to something new is never easy. And we've got experience of that, and at a different level. But if you think in Teignmouth, when we proposed changing the old Jolly Roger play area to what's on the Den now, people opposed it. They thought it was awful. It was going to affect trade. But when we did it, what was the reaction? Actually, people were coming from Torquay and Exeter into Teignmouth. They were buying the ice creams and the coffees and doing more. And some of the local bed and breakfast said that they were getting more trade, not less. It was good. And when we pushed ahead with buying Michael's Field and changing that into sports grounds, which enabled us to do Broadmeadow, which enabled Morrison's, which enabled 11 million to come into the council and enabled the council to deliver the theatre space in Teignmouth, again to replace the old theatre. You know, it's a big investment and it's created jobs in terms of S3 Court. So when I look at Newton Abbot, I find it interesting that 99% of the people had TQ postcodes. And I wondered about all those people who live in EX7, Dawlish, EX6, Kenton, Starcross, Exminster, beyond, and why they're not in Newton Abbot. But they are Newton Abbot's market, surely. People in Kenton, Starcross, Exminster, Dawlish should be thinking to themselves, I want to go to Newton Abbot. What's the offer? What's the attraction? So we're missing out, aren't we? We're missing out on part of the offer right across our district, that this is bigger than simply Newton Abbot. People should be thinking, I am going to go to Newton Abbot, I am going to go there and shop. It has much to offer. It's a pleasant environment. I can have a coffee, I can have lunch, I can do things. I can stay on in the evening and I can see a show or music or whatever it might be, and a market experience to be proud of, you know, because people do like markets, there's no doubt about that. And I think I should speak up for shipping containers, because Councillor Hodgkin said the new cinema will look like 2 shipping containers. Well, I remember seeing a Grand Designs programme where someone actually bought 2 shipping containers and put them across each other and converted them into an absolutely fantastic home. So there's much to be shared for shipping containers. But also, if you go to Bristol, so you don't need to go to Europe, you can just go to Bristol in the next, 2 counties away, really. And if you go to the harbour side there, you will see a shipping container village, not rusting wrecks of things that were sort of stranded in the Suez Canal, but marvellous structures, insulated, and they've got retailers in them, and fish and chip shops and pizza places and a butcher and candle makers and all sorts in there. And it's brought life to the harbour side. It's a place where people go. And so that leads me back to something even closer, Exeter. And if you think about the quay in Exeter, say 40 years ago, you probably couldn't have paid people to have gone there. And if you remember the under arches, there was a place you could buy wood. There were panel beaters, car sprayers, car mechanic places, and all that sort of thing. But it wasn't really a place you want to go and spend any time, unless you had to be there. And Exeter had a vision about that quay, about turning it into a place where people would go and wanted to be, and residential came with it, as you know, because those flats came in time. But they had to get the public sector investment in first in order to make it a place that was desirable. And I was there over the weekend. I, went for a long walk, and the piazza at the end of the Canal Basin, absolutely rammed with people buying coffees and bacon burgers and goodness knows what else, or bacon baps, I should have said. Absolutely, and cyclists, loads of cyclists on halfway through or whatever. That was a thing. But people were there. It was vibrant. It was a joyous place to be. And I really don't feel that, the absence of people from Newton Abbot is something that we can allow to continue. The figures show there is a decline. The figures show that people are voting with their feet, and their feet are taking them in a different direction. And this is a moment in time where we can seize it and hopefully secure it. And so I just wanted to say to you as well, a couple of other buildings that I think of note. If you've been to Liverpool, there's a huge building. When you look at it, it's designed to look like a ship coming into port. And that led me on to think about the Western Morning News building in Plymouth, which again won awards. I don't think it is the Western Morning News building now. But in time, I've no idea whether the new cinema in Newton Abbot will be seen as an award-winning. Doesn't really matter if it is or it isn't, does it? What it needs to be is attracting people in to go and see a film. There are 3 cinemas that I know of in Exeter with a population of about 120,000. And we're proposing 1 cinema in Newton Abbot, which has a population of 40-ish, 50,000, but it has a very wide hinterland. As people like me who have choices about whether you go into Exeter on an evening and see a film, or whether I go to Newton Abbot. Why shouldn't I go to Newton Abbot with a brand new 4-screen cinema and then maybe have some entertainment after and stay on and catch up with friends in these post-COVID times, which I hope we're going to get. So my summary is, if it's not now, when? If it's not this, then what? What is better than? What is the vision there? And if Newton Abbot isn't and doesn't deserve to be Devon's premier market town, show me a place that does. Because I think we're on the money and of the moment, and we really do need to move ahead. And I'm going to ask Neil Blaney now to top what I've just said and tell us why we're doing the right thing. Neil, and deal with the housing too.
I don't know if I can top that. I will pick up on the housing point though. We can't change the bid as submitted. It is what it is. But that we are looking at options and possibilities for town centre living. So there's different opportunity areas, the sites that have permission that have stalled, and there's assets that we own that we can look at bringing forward through another route. So for Councillor Purser, we are actively looking at that. It isn't part of this particular bid. Part of it is having projects ready to go, because the timescale for delivering these projects and spending the money is end of March 2024. We're in a position with the projects we put forward. There'll be other funding opportunities, I'm sure, as we move forward. And so it's making sure we are continuing developing those plans. Obviously, we've got the Teambridge 100, which will contain some of those, and making sure we do that. And not just for Newton Abbot, it's looking at opportunities in all towns where residential is. The government is making it easier. I think with permitted development, I don't know the finer details as to how much control there is over how it looks, whether it's just straight conversion and off you go. So but that's definitely up there. The Grimsby review talks about the importance not only of the experience and the destination, but increasing residential in the town centre, more footfall, more permanent presence. The active evening economy is enhanced by having more people who are just there anyway all the time. So this ties in well with that, in that, if we're looking at more residential coming in, there are plenty of things for people to be doing and wanting to be there as a destination and somewhere to live.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Neil. Now, I know no one asked to go into part 2, but can I just check for the purposes of the minutes, does anyone wish to discuss any aspect of the report that was provided in exempt information? No? All right. Thank you very much for that. I just want to be clear that I've asked that. Neil, can I ask you to put up then the final recommendations for council onto the screen?
Okay, so this is the So this is the version that I showed before with the track changes in there, and then there's the tidied up version.
So just a clean version. So just to be clear then, if you just hold it there, thanks.
Yeah.
So executive is asked to resolve to accept the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government funding of 9.2 million, but you've got the exact figure there, offered as part of the Future High Street programme, and that 2, the market or proposals be approved in principle. Further engagement with key stakeholders will continue on detailed design phase for the internal layout, and the executive recommends to council that, as detailed in this report, the National Cycle Route 2 proposals, as paragraph 2.3 report, and associated budget are approved. Queen Street proposals and the associated council budget are approved, and market all proposals and associated budget are approved. The council budget of 991,921 for the cinema, as set out, is approved, and that we give delegated authority to the head of place and commercial services in consultation with the executive member for economy and jobs and the chief finance officer to finalise details as set out there. And I want that for clarity. Nina, are you happy to propose those slightly changed recommendations?
I am, Leader, thank you.
Super. And may I invite a seconder, please? I can't see anyone, so you'll have to call.
I'll second.
A second.
All right, who was the first?
Jackie.
Jackie, yes, so we'll take Jackie Hook for seconding. And can we take that off the screen then? And then we're going to move to a vote. And I'm going to, just for the purposes of the minute on this occasion, I'm going to ask for a named vote. So, Sarah, if you would just take the...
I'll take the names down.
Thank you.
Councillor Connett.
4.
Councillor Dewhurst.
4.
Councillor Jackie Hook.
4.
Councillor Keeling.
4.
Councillor Jeffries.
4.
Councillor McGregor.
4.
Councillor Purser.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Wrigley.
4.
That's carried unanimously, Chair.
Thank you very much. And just for everyone's clarity, and particularly for those who may be watching on YouTube, so that stands as our resolution and our recommendation to council, and that goes to council on the next council meeting is the 22nd of April, isn't it?
Yes, this
So
leader
that's where the recommendations are then
Yes.
considered again by the full membership of the council. Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that. That concludes then the Future High Street Fund issue, and I want to close by thanking all of the officers, not just for their time today, but also for all of their work over an extended period of time on the Future High Street Fund bid and all the work that's going on behind the scenes. I know there's a lot happening, and it is much appreciated. And thank you very much to all of the team on that. That, I think, then is the end of our agenda, is it not? There's nothing else, Sarah, I've missed, is there?
No, nothing else. No.
That's right. So can I say thank you to Gordon for coming to speak, and also to you, Mike, for coming to speak and setting out your views on the Future High Street Fund. It is all appreciated, and good that you were able to come today and take part. It is valued. So thank you very much, colleagues. Have a lovely week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you, Leader. Goodbye.